Sea Red Nation, Breeze Nation, what is good? Question on the table today. Are the Chicago Bulls moving in the right direction, or are we actually getting worse in some areas? Let's talk about it, starting now. Now, before we do anything, I need you to hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, man, because we do talk Chicago sports on this channel. Daily is the only channel talking Chicago sports, how Chicago talk, man. So make sure that you get in tune with us, man. The Bulls had just about as up and down of a weekend as you can, right? Saturday, I go to the game. I'm having a great time. Bulls are breaking franchise records at the half. We're knocking shots down versus the Luka-less Dallas Mavericks, right? And we win a game that I felt like even with Luka in that game, the Chicago Bulls could win. But the NBA has a way of humbling you really, really quick. And just like that, on Sunday, we have a back-to-back game versus the Atlanta Hawks where, hey, listen, down to the wire, back and forth game, very entertaining game. It was a very good game, and the Bulls come out on the losing end of a heartbreaker that is a turnaround, fade away, fall away J, hook shot, whatever you want to call that, by AJ Griffin. That goes in over DJJ. And it's left Bulls fans fuming about where this team is at. And so the question on the table, and I want to know from you guys, man, let me know in the comments right now, are the Chicago Bulls moving in the right direction, or are they getting worse in some areas, right? And I'm sure, right, like we can look at a couple of different metrics, and we will, to talk about kind of where this Bulls team is, but I want to give just a general overview of what we're seeing from this team, right? Because I feel like there is more to the story than just, hey, we all of a sudden we're right back to where we were at one point in this season, right? We're right back to being just a mediocre basketball team that isn't going to be able to, win in these bigger games, that isn't going to be able to close out tough games, that isn't, I don't think we're there again, right? Because here's the thing for me. When I'm looking at this team, I see a team that is trying to find an offensive identity over the last few games. I think they found a little bit more of an offensive identity over the last few games. I think that Billy Donovan is trying to run a lot more stronger offensive sets with this team, trying to actually get some ball movement going with this team offensively, trying for it to not just be the your turn, my turn offense that we've seen from the Chicago Bulls this season. And I think that that has been the reason why we've seen them being offensively better. The Bulls are moving up in some of these categories, right? They're right now still, they're 22nd in the NBA in offensive rating, 111, but they were at the bottom of the NBA because of shot attempts, because of shots made, field goal percentage, different things like that. But we're starting to see the defense uptick a little bit as well. The Bulls at one point had a negative net rating. Now they're sitting right at 0.0 basically, right? Like their offensive rating is 111.4, their defensive rating is 111.3. But here's the thing at the end of the day for me, when I'm looking at where this team is kind of at, I see a team that you're starting to see Zach LaVine wake up a little bit. I don't think that he did the best things for us shooting the basketball in overtime last night. I liked how he attacked the bucket. I liked when he was aggressive to the bucket. I thought that some of those shots that he took were a little bit interesting. The 2 3-pointers I felt like weren't needed, right? But here's the other thing on top of that. Those are the same shots that Zach LaVine was hitting the night before, and we were standing up in our seats losing our minds. So I think situationally there's something to be said about kind of where this Bulls team, or where Zach LaVine was at with those shots, right? Like maybe that's not the time to take those shots, but those are the shots that we praise him for. Those are the shots that when he's knocking them down, we're sitting there like, that's exactly what Zach LaVine can do. So I can't kill a guy for taking the shots that we have come accustomed to him being able to knock down. And I think that, right, when you see it come within the flow of the offense, it feels a lot better, though. I think that's the biggest part for me. It seemed like when the Bulls got into overtime last night, right, like we weren't going with that flow of the offense offense that we saw for most of the weekend. And I think that's the part for me that has me feeling a lot more positive with this team, right? Has me feeling like this team is moving a little bit more in the right direction because there is a flow to this offense. I think at points last night, right, there wasn't. And I think there's something to be said. I know people are going to say, it's just making excuses. You should be able to play in second of back-to-backs the same way. That's just not the case, right? Like the Bulls win in Dallas. They probably don't even go home. They fly out on a plane to Atlanta that night, probably getting to Atlanta at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And, like they got a game that night. Hey, welcome to the NBA. That's probably, that's how it goes in this league, but it does affect you. And in the second of a back-to-back, in a game where you lose Ayo Dosunmu, I don't come out of this game, I don't come out of this weekend feeling like the Bulls are getting worse. Are there things that I look at and I say that you don't attack them enough offensively? 100%, man. I think that, again, the big question that the big thing that we saw in the Dallas game, the big thing that we saw in the Washington game, the big thing that we didn't see here tonight, your stars gotta be your stars, man. DeMar DeRozan again showing up. He played well in that Atlanta game, but outside of that, right, Zach LaVine had 21 points and some questionable buckets. And Nikola Vucevic not really getting himself going offensively. Vuce, and I think that's kind of the part where, in this Atlanta game, if I'm going to give any flack, it's that the Bulls still aren't comfortable running an offense that does include a ton of ball movement consistently enough, right? Like, we've only seen this for a few games. I really do think this is something that Billy Donovan has been trying to institute since the beginning of the season, and the Bulls probably just didn't look ready enough to implement this offense, to put this offense in play. Now, as the season is playing out, you're seeing him start to try and work this back in, an offense that creates more ball movement, different things like that. But at times, right, this Bulls team, and I think on the second of a back-to-back, it's a time where, hey, I'm exhausted. I got to go with what makes me comfortable, and that's where you see the Bulls kind of go back to a little bit of the one-on-one. Again, the second quarter of games, bro. In that second quarter, the offense just did not exist. The offense just was not moving. And of course, right, like that's the moment where you see the full bench unit, and that's where you get Dragic, where you get Drummond and all those guys in the game, right? But I don't, for me, you have to find some kind of consistency at running this new offense. Is it going to lead to more turnovers? Sure. You're moving the ball around a lot more. That it leads for more of an opportunity for people to get hands in the passing lanes. You got to cut your turnovers down. I think that's something that we can take away from the weekend as a whole, right? But the big thing for me when I'm looking at this Bulls team is, okay, yeah, we're moving the ball more. We're creating more passing opportunities, but we need to do that consistently. There were moments in this Atlanta game where we were taking the tough shot, right, where we were moving the ball around, especially in that second quarter, kind of going into that third quarter early on. We got the offense kind of going again midway through the third where we started moving the ball. We started getting things, back, getting back in the right direction offensively. But the big thing for me was, you saw this team pretty consistent in the Atlanta game on, we're going to just lean on DeMar. We're going to lean on Zach making shots, right? Like, we're not going to go to the offense that has gotten us in this position in the first place. And I think it was an offense that was working well, right? You were feeding the ball down low to Vooch. Now, I will say Atlanta was doing an excellent job defending Vooch in that situation. And so it made it a little bit harder to get him the ball down low, and he was trying to pass out of a lot of those shots to find open shooters, and he found open shooters, and those were things that I can live with, right? But your stars still have to be your stars at the end of the day, and I'm looking directly at Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic and saying, hey, listen, guys, if you're going to play night in and night out, I need you to give me this level of play. To me, at a minimum, right, Vooch, you got to give me 15 and 9. At a minimum. Vooch gave us what in this game? 13 and 8? You're right there. You're right there, right? Like, give me that little bit more, because guess what? That little bit more wins us this game in Atlanta. Zach LaVine, you gotta be a 23 to 25 point per game a night guy, and having the 5 assists or 5 rebounds, 5 assists. I need to see that in this one. 21 3 and 3. That's not cutting it, right? Just that little bit more from your stars. And we're not talking about this game coming down to DJJ free throws. We're not talking about this game in Atlanta coming down to a turnaround fadeaway J hit it in your face type of game. And so for me, right, like those are some of the things that I look at that I could say, yeah, like those are the negative points that you could look at and say, hey, this Bulls team is either just kind of staying the same or they're getting worse, right? But I don't leave this weekend feeling like the Bulls are going backwards, in my personal opinion. I do want to know how you guys feel, man. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think the Bulls are getting worse? Do you think that the Bulls are being coached worse? Do you think that the Bulls are moving in the wrong direction? And here's the question that I would ask you if to think about, right? Like, don't just instantly type a comment. This guy doesn't. We're terrible. We're gonna be 11th. We're gonna miss the playoffs. Blah blah blah. Here's the question I want to ask you to put this all in perspective. If AJ Griffin doesn't hit an incredibly difficult shot, how do you look at this weekend? Do you look at this weekend as the Chicago Bulls are moving in the right direction? Because when you really think about how this Atlanta game went down, we lost to a team that hit incredibly difficult shots. Bogdanovich hit a fadeaway falling out of bounds over the backboard mid-range jump shot to put them up 1. That would have been the game-winning shot if DeMar DeRozan doesn't go down with 1 second to go and get fouled. No, Trae Young hit the dagger, right? So that was the shot before that. Bulls go down, get a bucket, and Bulls go down, get a bucket, and then on the other end, Trae Young hits the step back over Kobe. But how do you feel coming out of this weekend if 2 incredibly ridiculous shots don't fall? And that's how I'm trying to look at this, right? Because the emotion of it, I'm pissed that the Bulls lost. The emotion of it, I can't believe that we've got DJJ in that moment. The analysis of it, DJJ was playing well defensively. DJJ was playing really well defensively in this Atlanta game. He matched up well with AJ Griffin. AJ Griffin was struggling to shoot the basketball to the point where the Bulls were starting to be able to leave him open, right? And he gets an inbound pass that comes to him. I think DJJ over-pursued it a little bit. He was out of position, but he's able to recover, puts a hand in his face. Tough fadeaway J, able to get that to fall. Tough. That hurt. It sucked. But if that ball rims out to the right, how do you feel this Bulls team played this weekend? And for me, right, I think as I look at this team as a whole, defensively, I can say the Bulls played better this weekend. Defensively, I can say that we saw the Bulls jumping lanes. We saw the Bulls forcing a ton of turnovers themselves, right? Thinking that Atlanta game, what did we force? 14 turnovers in that game. Now you give up 18, right? That makes it a little bit worse. But you come away with 11 steals in that game. 11 steals in that game. Right, defensively, we're playing the passing lanes. We're playing better. You lose, to me, right? If you don't lose Ayo Dosunmu to a abdominal injury, I'm gonna be honest. I said this over on Locked On Bulls. If that's an abdominal injury, shout out to Ayo, because we all saw what happened to that man. Feel better, brother. But honestly, right? Like if Ayo Dosunmu stays in the game, and I know if it was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. But I'm looking at the totality of how this weekend went. We set a franchise record here in Chicago. We go down on the second of a back-to-back. Second of back-to-backs are games where generally we have not come out and competed well. We have not come out and been in these games. Or not, I shouldn't say in these games, but we have not come out and looked like, right, like we were ready to play in these games. We have not come out with energy on the other side, right? We win in Milwaukee. We go out to OKC, and all of a sudden we just look dead the entire night, and we're able to get it close at the end of the game. That's not how this Atlanta game felt to me. That's not how the weekend closing out felt to me, right? Like, so for me, I saw a lot of positives from the Chicago Bulls team. And maybe I'm looking at it from the glass half full perspective. Maybe I'm looking at it from the, hey, I know where we were at the start of the season. I know how things looked at the start of the season. And so as we're moving forward, I can see how things are getting better. Like this weekend, to me, I see a lot of things that got better. Offensively, the ball movement of this team is better. It's better than the one-on-one, one-pass, one-shot offense. I think we got back into that in moments here in Atlanta, especially in that second quarter. But then guess what? Boom. We jump back into it third quarter, fourth quarter. We fight our way back into this, get all the way down to OT. I saw a team that showed resilience. I saw a team that showed fight. I saw a team that showed heart. Right? Like, what was our biggest complaint about the Chicago Bulls team early on in the season? You're not playing with heart. This Chicago Bulls team versus the Atlanta Hawks tonight showed heart. Or last night, showed heart. Those are steps in the right direction for me. And I also can look at it and say, hey, this is a weekend where in one game, you were the one making the tough shots. In another game, you got beat by a team that was making tough shots. And to me, that's what this weekend came down to. Sometimes you do lose in this league. Sometimes you do get beat in this league. I think, right, like if anything, especially right from the coaching aspect of things and stuff like that, if anything, I would have, I got a little bit of questions for Billy Donovan on that last play. I would have thrown Andre Drummond in there on AJ Griffin, just to make it a little bit tougher for him to get a look at the rim. But at the same, and honestly, right, like to make the inbound pass a lot tougher, because in that situation, to me, you probably aren't able to get that pass down there because Andre Drummond at that point had 5 steals in the game, right? Like I can look at that and say, yeah, maybe that's probably a miss on Billy's part. I would have loved to see Andre Drummond. And a lot of those steals were throwing the ball at the rim and him just jumping up and snatching that mug away. So you probably aren't able to even get that inbound pass in there. You're not able to get that same angle if Andre Drummond's in there. But heck, DJJ matched up well against them. He had played well against them, and that had been his matchup all night. I'm not going to murder you. I'm not going to kill Billy Donovan for going with a matchup that actually worked out for us for most of the night. Do I think that there's something that could have gone better? Yeah, but hindsight's 20/20. Actually, it was before hindsight. I said I wanted Drummond in there at the beginning, but I don't know. I don't know. I thought that was a moment where you could have thrown him in there. And so I will say, right, like, even with that, how are you talking about Billy Donovan if we win this game? Right? Like, for me, I'm looking at this in a situation of, and of course, it does come down to those moments, right? It does come down to making those adjustments in the crunch time. That's what you're paid to do for as a coach. So with them losing this game, right, yeah, I'm looking at Billy a little bit more negative than maybe positive in that situation. But I'll say this as well. This Bulls offensive scheme is definitely better. This Bulls offense is definitely playing better. This Bulls team as a whole is showing more heart on the defensive end. And you know what? If in the second of a back-to-back where you just flew in that night, it comes down to a game-winning fadeaway tough shot over the outstretched hands of DJJ, I can't sit here and say Billy Donovan coached a terrible game. I can't. I saw somebody on Twitter already. Why'd we stop going into Vooch? Well, if you watch the game, they were double teaming Vooch every time he got the ball. Anytime Vooch got the ball and went to back down, there came the help side from the help from the weak side, right? Like, so Vooch making the right basketball play, passing the ball out, trying to find open guys, getting the ball movement started, right? Like, those are things that worked. It's not like that didn't work. But in these situations, I need just a little bit more from my star players. Heck, I need just a little bit more from Billy Donovan in these situations more as well. I need you to make that last adjustment. That last adjustment cost us a game, in my opinion. I see why you live with it. I understand why you live with it. I don't hate you going with that player. But it definitely, to me, right, like cost us an opportunity to win the game. I can't guarantee you that you win the game. He might hit a tough shot over Andre Drummond. So in my opinion, right, like I think as a whole, the Bulls are moving in the right direction. I mean, the numbers would tell you that. Unfortunately, right, it's still kind of middle of the pack numbers, but we are, again, a top 10 defense. And you know what? It's not just numbers in the situation. Like, I feel like after these last 3 games, it really does look like that. It does look like we are a top 3 defense. Or a top 10 defense. Right now, we sit 7th in the NBA. It really does look like it. Right? Like, beginning of the season, it was like we had top 7 defense. They look like they 15, 16 ranked defense right now. Last night in crunch time, right? Like the Bulls Atlanta didn't score for what? I think Atlanta didn't score the final 4 minutes of the third, going into the first 2 minutes of the fourth, something like that. The Bulls looked like a stifling defense. Now, the fact that you're a 22nd ranked offense, right, you didn't take enough advantage of them going on that offensive drought. And I think that's going to be that's the next step, right? And guess what? That step comes with a lot of things. It comes with the health of Ayo Dosunmu. It comes with the health of Alex Caruso. You were missing 2 key players in this game that definitely help you out defensively and offensively. It comes with just actually locking into this offense that Billy Donovan is trying to implement. And it comes to me at the end of the day with, hey, finishing out and your stars making the tough plays. Atlanta had players come out there that made the tough plays. Bogey hit some ridiculous shots, hand in his face all night, knocking shots down. Who am I thinking of? AJ Griffin hit some tough shots, played well. I like the Rook, played well. Trae Young being Trae Young. He wasn't even good. He wasn't even good, but the biggest difference to me was there was no Ayo to defend him in the passing lanes in those situations, right? Like all of a sudden those passing lanes opened up. Kobe White's arms just ain't that long, right? He's not going to knock that many passes away, but I thought Kobe White played well. I looked through last night's game, right? And outside of like all of a sudden P. Will basically just not getting used, he had 8.7 rebounds and then just didn't get back in the game. Shot it a little bit more poorly last night, but I thought he was playing well enough for you defensively to keep him out there. But Ayo ends up getting hurt. But he was playing well in the time that he was on the floor. Trae Young, I believe, was 0 for 8. When Ayo was guarding him with the team, right, he was kind of sending him into the team's defense, and the team as a whole was shutting down Trae Young. Kobe White played well last night, 12 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, huge steal at the end of that game, played well. DJJ, outside of missing a game-sealing free throw, which is big, and getting the game-winning shot hit on you, DJJ had a rough night, played well. Andre Drummond played great. 16 minutes, 14 rebounds, 14 points, 9 rebounds, 5 steals. Played great. Another game where I'm saying the continuity pieces that AK bet on have to step up. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. We're having a completely different conversation about this game. And we're having a completely different conversation about this team. But I do feel like the Bulls are moving in the right direction. But hey, I want to know how you guys feel, man. Let me know in the comments below. Are you feeling more positive about where this Bulls team is after this weekend? Are you feeling like we're getting worse? Are you feeling like we're just going to be middle of the pack, mediocre no matter what? How are you feeling about this team, man? Let me know in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you as well. Hey, as always, man, it's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again to continue watching our Chicago Bulls content. Click the links on the screen or check the links in the description below. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Peace.